This is Scratchy's Adventure 1's world record timeline back in 2022. This was Scratchy's Adventure 2's world record timeline, also back in 2022. And here was Scratchy's Adventure 3's only record in early 2023. If you see a pattern here, then yes there is. The more you continue on the sequels, the more inactive it is. Scratchy's Adventures games as a speedrun was just genuinely boring. All you had to do was to collect keys, open gates, and avoid hazards without any major tech. So, the whole series ran into a big inactivity wave. No major forum posts or any discussion, and world record contenders weren't really doing much. By early 2023, it seemed like all hope was lost. Until the 7th of February. Maxi Memes, a new player interested in Scratchy's Adventure 1, wrote an incredibly genius post, something that should have been thought of long ago.
Mobile joystick plus WASD equals speed. 140 is possible.
It seemed great. Scratchy's Adventure could be taken in the 140x range and possibly lower. But here comes the big thing. This glitch can be used across every game in the series, which was more than monumental. This revolutionary post would change the course of all the Scratchy's Adventure games forever, which in turn made the SA community so much more active. This is how one forum post broke the Scratchy's Adventure series. So, where the hell do we begin? I mean, we've got so much to cover even with this one thing being discovered. Let's go to what happened after. What happened after was a massive surge in activity for the whole series. I mean, you have 3 or so games that can be improved on by so much with this one glitch. SA1's world record could totally be taken under 140. However, we won't be talking about SA1. Instead, let's go to its sequel, SA2. It takes place in a gray cave, and it's one of the shorter games in the series. But first, before we move on the game, what is the mobile joystick speed glitch? It's actually very simple yet super powerful. If you run with WASD or arrow keys, then hold mobile joystick to the direction you're going, you can go really fast. This can quite literally double your horizontal speed, but it does depend on how straight the mobile joystick is. And so, all runs would be so much more faster. So, let's begin with the quick history of SA2 after the mobile joystick revolution. Before the revolution, the world record was a 110 held by Captain Ninja 6, and her run was considered to be really good. Around 2 months after the revolution started to begin, Maxi Memes would get a 59-second SA2, the first Scratchy's Adventure game to be completed in under a minute. Unfortunately, no remaining video exists. Then a dry spell came with no major activity. During April of 2024, however, a new runner emerged. They were quite new in the Scratch running community at the time, but they were quite a threat to Maxi and his speedrunning journey in general. And he will be one of the most important people in Scratchy's Adventure history. Introducing, Scratchy Speedrunner. Scratchy began running the SA series in this game, SA2. He started off scarily close off Maxi's world record, clocking in with a 1:230. Then at the exact same day, he got his first world record in the game. 58.767. This scared Max, and so less than an hour later, he got a 58.383. Around 2 hours later, he got a massive improvement, 55.935. It took a day for Scratchy Speedrunner to respond, but he did fire back with a new world record of 54.783. Max, however, didn't like this once again. He responded another day later with another great run, 52.206. In the span of a day, Maxi took the world record to 50.259, and sub 50 was now on the horizon. However, it would be very difficult as it would just be trying your best to optimize movement as much as you can. However, some new strategies were being found which would make sub 50 a lot more easier, and lower possibly looming over too. Let us take a look at these two new strategies. In this room, you'd normally have to wait for this platform to come down, and then come back up to let you go to the next room. However, Max found if you jump off these stairs early, then time a precise wall jump right before the platform goes back down, you'll actually be able to skip a cycle of the platform. This saves an incredible 2 seconds. Another simple skip was found in the red key room where instead of doing 2 wall clings, you can just jump on the platform, do 1 wall cling, and skip having to do the double wall clings. This saves a respectable 0.7. With these time saves combined, Max could save nearly 3 seconds, which was revolutionary for this game as time's abs were running low. And so on the 15th of April, he'd quickly get on attempts.
I just found a new strat, and I'm gonna see if I can get a record.
And then around 3 minutes after he started recording, Maxi would get on a strong run with the new red key strat. His last attempt he unfortunately messed up the cycle skip, however in this attempt,
Yes! I got it!
the run was retimed to a 48.939, smashing the sub 50 barrier and making the way for new possible world records, as there was still improvements to be made throughout the run. But however, Scratchy was cooking in the background. It was now his turn to get world records. Scratchy's goal here wasn't just getting a world record, he wanted to get the legendary title of having all 4 Scratchy's Adventure World Records at once. This meant he had to have world records in SA1, SA3, SA4 and SA2. And so on the 19th of April, Scratchy would try to get the legendary 4 out of 4, as SA2 was his only game remaining. He managed to get on a strong run. His movement was great, and actually managed to get a faster cycle skip setup which made him far ahead of the world record. Finally, it happened. 4 out of 4 had been achieved. Scratchy was happy and would be moving on to other games, but he still wasn't just done with SA as a whole yet. Maxi took a small break from SA2, but around a month later he came back, taking the world record back and beating it by 0.2 of a second. 47.553 to 47.355.
Yo! There's no way. Next run.
Scratchy came back to take back the world record next month on June, although they were quite small improvements, taking it down to 47.124. Eventually SA2 had a small inactivity wave, but on the 13th of November Scratchy would get the current world record of 46.662, a 0.4 second improvement off the world record. And that's the history of Scratchy's Adventure 2. So, what's next? Well, next up, we have fittingly the hardest SA game in the series. Let's dive into the history of SA3. Now SA3 is fittingly called the Danger Zone. It's very difficult casually as there's lots of spikes, lava and slimes. The spikes in this game are placed so awkwardly and dying is so easy in this game. Your run can essentially be flushed down the toilet if you're not careful enough. But combine this game with the mobile joystick glitch, and you get the dumpster fire that is SA3 speedruns.
What? No! No!
There would be lots of problems. This game was so hard that it wouldn't even be ran until the mobile joystick revolution came around, when the legendary TYS got a 118. Although sloppy, it did show potential that the game could be finally speed ran. Now after this, Max would get to work on this game. He managed to take the record down to a 40.821, which was way shorter than SA2. This makes SA3 the shortest, yet hardest game in the series. This run had such insane platforming, and it's not even close to today's standards. There are so many scary jumps in this run that Maxi had to slow down at most of them, as he risked dying in pretty much every spike spot. Scratchy around 4 months later would improve this run to the first sub-40 SA3 run, getting a 38 flat. Another clean run from Scratchy. Max would try solidifying his dominance by setting 4 world records, 3 of which were in the same exact day. 35.706 was probably where the world record would stand for a while, and for good reason. His platforming was just incredible, and it looked so tough to improve. However, Scratchy just said, "No, I will have the world record now." And his SA3 domination arc started. Nearly 3 months of just playing the game every so often, but nearly 3 months of domination. Max could only hold on to 1 world record for a day, which is quite comical in my opinion. It's just Max trying his utmost best to get a decently lasting world record, but Scratchy just says no and immediately takes it back. However, this isn't where the world record stands. Scratchy later took down the record to a low 33, and then took it down to the current world record of 32.868. The platforming in today's standards is just insane. The start is such a hard point in the run as you have to do near frame perfect jumps without turnarounds. Now next up on the block, we have another pretty hard game. It's time for the Golden Temple, Scratchy's Adventure 4. SA4 is actually one of the most movement-based games in the series. There aren't much strategies, but the game is still pretty hard. Before the revolution started, Akurataki held the SA4 world record with a 135. But the revolution at this time had started a long time ago. For some reason SA4 was the game that took the longest to be affected by the joystick revolution. Moving on, TYS would once again get to work on the record. He started by chipping off 3 seconds from the world record with a 132, and then improved that run by an incredible 22 seconds to a 110. This run was quite solid for its time, but there was still so many mistakes to improve on. He died once in this section and had to play it slow, and TYS climbed these stairs quite slow. Around 2 months later, a new runner took the TYS's world record. A runner named Pul Matrox would get a sub-110 by getting a 103.250. It was pretty much a cleaner version of TYS's run. He managed to go through the whole game deathless, improved on the stairs and even some other areas. Still improvable, enough for sub-minute, but it was still quite good. Around a month later, another runner came by, and this guy was legendary. Induville would get a 58.417, and it was really good. Induville was quite the runner, and his movement was incredible. This allowed him to pull ahead of the world record by a ton. But in the description, Induville wasn't too happy with this run, and it did kind of make sense. But after all, sub-minutes still very good. In March through April, Max and Scratchy traded the world record, eventually landing on Scratchy's 58.278. However, on April 15th, one day after Scratchy's world record, Max would get an insane world record. He took down the world record to 55.044. His run would begin with quite good platforming and extremely good joystick movement. His parkour section was just so clean, near perfect in fact. Then in a vertical platforming section, Maxi implemented a funny new strategy. Now the normal and intended way of doing this room is just jumping on these platforms. However, Max discovered that Hearn 1, the creator of the SA games, left in a room that should be out of bounds only. He found that if you jump and then transition back to the vertical scene, you can skip some platforming, which can at least save a second and a half. After all of that amazing platforming, Max managed to get a 3-second improvement off the world record. His word of analysis?
What?
Around 2 days later, Max would improve this record to a 54.813, which was meant to try to push away Scratchy from getting the world record. It seemed like a genius. Nope. 1 day later he got a 54.120. 10 days later 53.427 by Scratchy. This run featured insanely fast movement. The slow downs in the spike section looked so clean and his stair section was just excellent. Scratchy knew that this run would stand for quite a while. It would be so hard to improve on this run, and so it stood for a while. But 4 months later, Scratchy would get on quite an insane run. The stars were aligning. Scratchy was on pace to get a sub 53, and it would be a low sub 53. Scratchy just had to focus up and just beat the game. But then, unfortunately, he messed up and accidentally did a wall cling, causing him to fall down and lose nearly all of his lead. Sure, it was still a world record, but it just missed 52 by literally a soul-crushing 32 milliseconds. And the run essentially had everything. The unintended room strat, very fast slowdowns at the spikes, and a pretty good stair section. Another 2 months flew by without any major activity in SA4. However, someone was derusting. He hadn't played the SA series in a while. That's right, Maxi McPrime was back to take the world record for SA4. For a while, Maxi was doing whatever he does, but he hadn't done Scratchy's adventure in a while. And so one day he decided to just focus on SA1 world record attempts. However, Maxi and his viewers noticed he was just not doing as well as he did back then. But then, Max focused on SA4. All he wanted was to get one world record in SA4. He'd try doing them live, but it wasn't working out, so he later did them offline. But he made progress. On the 13th of November he got on a strong run, not as good as Scratchy's run, but it was up there. He managed to get all the things. Good parkour, good spikes, good room strat, but didn't get a great stairs. The final time was a solid 53.9. This was a bit far from the record, but Max could actually get 52 if he just locked in more. Max knew he could do it, and so he did more offline grinding. Would Scratchy's world records in the modern age finally be broken by Maxi? Well, on the same day that he got the 53.9, November 13th, Maxi would get on this run.
No way! No way! Sub 53! Yes!
After several months of not being a record holder, Maxi would finally get his first world record after a long time in this series. It wasn't by much, but it was barely enough for the first sub 53. It didn't matter if Scratchy got world record, what mattered was the fact that Maxi finally was in his prime. The only major improvement was probably the stairs, as he still did a weird wall cling method. Other than that, this run was amazing. Unfortunately, the run would be beaten a day later, taken down to an incredible 52.239. It featured everything from Max's run, and improved the stair section. And that's pretty much all for SA4, a heavily movement-based game with not much strategies. 51 could be possible. But there's one final game. The first game in the series, and is known for being the most prestigious world record in the Scratchy's Adventure series. It's time for the final chapter, Scratchy's Adventure 1. Here it is. The thing this video has been building up to, SA1. It is the longest game in the series, being the only one being a minute long. It is also one of the hardest games other than SA3, so you know we are getting into a deep history. The time to beat was an incredible 1:53 by Ulislin. For its time it was considered one of the greatest runs, as it looked like there was little to no room for improvement in this record. But the revolution came and, well, you can tell what happened. Remember when Maxi said 140 was possible with the speed glitch? Well, Induville literally crushed that with a 125 nearly 2 months after the glitch was discovered. A very strong run with some new strategies, such as this platform cycle skip which saves around 2 seconds. Maxi would come a month after Induville's world records, eventually taking it down to the first sub 120 in the game's history with a 118, but the videos don't exist. However, a day later on May 11th, Induville would get on a very good run. But this run would come with one strategy which would be unanimously considered to be the hardest part of the run. You could reset so many times to it, and it was at the very end of the run essentially. This is the super wall jump. Normally the intended way of doing these few scenes is just, well, wall climbing. It seems like there's no way to improve on this. But a strategy was found to speed this up so much more faster. If you cling on the wall, then position the joystick to be as straight as possible, you can mash the hell out of right and up and climb up the wall extremely fast. This was another extremely important part of the run, as it could possibly save a grand 3 seconds. It's just Scratchy literally zipping up a whole wall. It looks so unnatural to me in my opinion. In this run, Induville would get it, but it took him quite a while to get it. The final time of the run? 1:17 flat. He would later improve the run to a 1:16.790, which was great. So, you had 2 sub 120 world record, which was great. Max, however, wanted another sub 120, this time recorded. And he did. On June 8, 2023, Maxi would get a 1:15 recorded with video. It took until March of 2024 for Max to improve the run to a 1:14.712, and then a 1:14.316. In the .316, another new strategy would be found called Blizzard Skip. It's done by intentionally dying by making the yellow key gate fall on you to skip having to wait for the crusher cycle and a tiny bit of platforming, saving another 2 seconds. Now Maxi's run would stand for a good old-fashioned day, when Scratchy eventually got an ungodly time of 1:12. It featured pretty much everything you needed, Blizzard Skip and a really quick super wall jump. Now, it was just around 2 seconds away from a pretty big barrier, sub 111, or 110. If 110 would happen, 109 would happen. It was time for these two to break a barrier.
I did it. Oh my! Let's go!
There it is, Scratchy managed to get a 110.752, the first 110 in the game's history. It was a very clean run, and the community knew 109 would be possible, but it would take small improvements to get there. And so throughout the month, Scratchy would continue doing more runs, just to get that 109. On the 9th of June, Scratchy would get on another great run. He managed to get a good pace into the super wall jump. But he didn't get the super wall jump. He got the best one the game has ever seen. Absolutely incredible. Goes to show how incredible of a player Scratchy was. He closed it out with a 110.521, a new world record by a solid 0.2 of a second. The community was a bit inactive for a bit, as Scratchy and Maxi were focusing on other games. However, Scratchy would get back on the SA1 grind, and on November 14th, he would get the current Scratchy's Adventure 1 world record. It was one of his best paces into the super wall jump. There was maybe one mistake, but it didn't cost him much. Unfortunately, he did get a slower super wall jump start, which landed Scratchy on a 110.301, which is the current Scratchy's Adventure 1 world record as of this video's making. And that's it for Scratchy's Adventure 1. That's also it for this video. Now, as you know, this series without joystick would have been so boring. The same thing with little strategies and essentially zero time saves. But with this one post, the gates weren't just unlocked, they were demolished. Each of these 4 games got affected heavily by this one glitch alone, and so did the history of each of these games. It's incredible seeing how one post not only broke a game, but also brought back a whole new wave of people and essentially reconstructed the Scratchy's Adventure speedrun community. But who knows what will happen next? Will there be a new player? Will there be new strategies which will break one game or all of them? We will never know. This is how one post broke a whole series. Thank you for watching.